Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. The Ukraine War news update for the 12th of October 2023. There's been an awful lot of activity on the front lines yesterday in terms of what happened around Avdiivka. Just to remind you, because it's going to feature quite a lot on these lost statistics, this is Avdiivka. It's a bit like Bakhmut 2.0 in a sense in its earlier days, as in the Russians have been trying for a very long time to encircle the town. It's a bit of a thorn in the side of the Russians because it allows the Ukrainians to hit Donetsk City, which is just to the southeast here, with artillery that can be placed relatively close. So the Russians have been trying for a long time to take it. And yesterday they launched a couple of simultaneous attacks, and they were sizable attacks, really were sizable. Some of the lines of vehicles that have been caught on drone footage, particularly in this northern area, were, really extensive. They were trying to attack from the north, from this Krasnohorivka area. They attacked in two directions towards Berdichi and further to the south in a southerly direction to try and close this neck off here. Likewise, they attacked to try and close the neck off from the south in this northerly direction from Vodyane, as well as, I think, out to the west via Pervomaisky, as well as claims of an attack from Spartak, although there's not much video evidence of that. Andrew Perpetua did a live stream last night that I advise you go and watch, that was just talking about this Avdiivka attack. From what I can gather, it ended up being quite a failure for the Russians, and they have lost a phenomenal amount of equipment, and we'll talk about that in a second. This is something that they wanted to take for the reasons I've already mentioned, but they were also talking about in the live stream that this might be a kind of a political decision as well. This might well be on Putin's list of objectives that he really, really wants. So that's basically what happened. We'll now go and see how this translated in terms of equipment losses. So here we have the Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before, and you can see massive personnel losses. 990 personnel. That's the highest we've had in this counteroffensive, bar a couple of odd days of over 1,000, if I remember correctly. So over the last 3 months, this has, I think, been the third highest loss statistic for personnel. Tanks, 42 tanks, 44 armoured personnel vehicles. Now, that is interestingly fewer than we saw yesterday in terms of APVs. It was 91 yesterday, but they are, again, the claims are losing equipment hand over fist. This is just phenomenal losses. And these figures could well be accurate. There is an awful lot of footage, and we're going to speak about this in a second, coming out, and an awful lot of footage that still hasn't come out. Andrew Perpetua had a little anecdote last night where Konstantin, who's one of the guys who helps him, who does a lot of fundraising, is Ukrainian. I don't think he's in Ukraine at the moment, but has fought in the conflict. He does a lot of fundraising and raising money for drones. And as an example of there being a difference between drone footage or video evidence and the statistics, and the statistics will always be more than the video evidence for obvious reasons, but also this anecdote, Andrew Perpetua said that Konstantin was contacted by a drone guy, a guy he had fundraised for, got a drone to that guy or that unit, but then forgot they had done that because he's doing so many things. And then months later, the guy contacted him and said, just seeing how's it going and how it's going. And Konstantin was like, oh, all right, mate. Oh, I haven't heard from you. God, I forgot about you type thing. And the guy had like 20 losses on video that had never been released. It's like, so there's 20 bits of footage that isn't out there on social media just from one single human being who's operated this drone, done loads of stuff, destroyed 20 bits of kit, and that's not evidenced, although that would have been submitted to the general staff for loss statistics. So that one human being represents, in that case, a minus 20 or a difference of 20 between claims and evidence. So bear that in mind. There's going to be huge amounts of people up and down the front line who are not submitting every single one of their bits of video evidence to Twitter and Telegram for the delectation of the general audience. 32 artillery systems, two more. I mean, that's gone back up from the teens it was in, and that's a really unsustainable level. 2 multiple launch rocket systems, 21 drones, 1 cruise missile. So that's an odd singular cruise missile. 25 vehicles, although that won't be from last night, be from the night before, probably. 25 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 1 piece of special equipment. Really tremendously high figures again. So we've had 2 days of massive losses, and that again, it's what story does it tell? The story it tells is Avdiivka. So we'll come back to that. Before I do so, it's worth noting that reportedly a large patrol ship, Pavel Derzhavin of the Black Sea Fleet, blew up in Sevastopol today, said Anton Gerashchenko yesterday. It's unclear what happened exactly, waiting for official confirmation. Well, the latest is, yesterday there was already some rumors going around. Today, Dmytro Pietenchuk, spokesman for the Ukrainian Navy, confirmed that Russian Project 22160 patrol ship Pavel Derzhavin was damaged near Sevastopol. We we can officially confirm the ship was damaged. This can be considered as another hint that it is time for the Russian occupiers to leave our Sevastopol, he emphasized. How it's damaged is not mentioned, but reports state the warship hit a sea mine. There are claims it hit its own sea mine, or it could be one of Russia's own sea mines, but nevertheless, that's a general claim. There are other claims it's already in dry dock. Don't know, fog of war, but that is another significant loss for the Russians. It's not going in a good direction in terms of their equipment losses. Now, this is yesterday's equipment loss, as in what Andrew Perpetua released yesterday, but I reported on that and he added to it throughout the day, because it's like he kept fighting. In fact, I messaged him and he messaged me saying, I'm just going live, and I just found another 6, and Russian losses is just like it just keeps going. So from yesterday's stats that we already looked at, if you remember at the top, there was that recovery vehicle, that Brem 2 that fell off the bridge and has caused stupidity. But yeah, here we have a number of pieces of artillery, but a lot of tanks, from T-80s down to T-62s and everything in between. IFVs, just a phenomenal number of IFVs and APCs. This is predominantly going to be Avdiivka. We have then trucks and vans and cars and motorcycles. In fact, 3 motorcycles were a motorcycle attack, from what I can gather. And Perpetua on his live stream was talking about how he's not seen that. You see motorcycles getting used for like transporting stuff from here to there, maybe a bit of stealth usage, stealth attack type thing, but not in a full frontal attack. And there were 3 motorbikes in one image, I think. Just, quite incredible scenes. And then the Ukrainians, as I talked about yesterday, there is that plane that was taken out on the airfield, but other than that, not really anything to worry about. Just the difference between the Russian losses and the Ukrainians were huge. Well, that was yesterday's loss figures. And then today's is fairly similar. OSINT Technical says over the last 2-ish days, the Russian forces have ramped up their offensive towards Avdiivka. They're visually confirmed to have lost roughly 13 artillery pieces, 15 tanks, 33 IFVs and APCs, 6 trucks and 14 cars and vans. Now, that's your benchmark minimum, right? And there is lots more footage out there, and footage that is not out there. There's footage that Andrew Perpetua just hasn't seen, that will be on obscure Telegram channels or here and there, places he just hasn't come across. But there will also be an awful lot of stuff that's just not been uploaded to Telegram or to social media, so on and so forth. As OSINT Technical says, this is roughly a battalion tactical group worth of vehicle losses. It's just phenomenal. And so... yes, I just want to look at then the addition to the losses you've just seen there. We can add a Strela 10 surface-to-air missile system, comms equipment, some more artillery, some multiple launch rocket systems there. We have tanks, a number of tanks, T-72s, and then other unknowns. IFVs, again, adding to that huge list of IFVs and APCs, and then some more trucks and civilian vehicles. You come down to the Ukrainian losses. That SPG, I think, might well be a Panzer Howitzer 2000 in the Avdiivka area. So that would be quite a sore loss for the Ukrainians. And then some BMPs, Max Pros, Huskies, that kind of stuff. But again, you're looking at a 4-to-1 ratio, 4-to-1 ratio of Russian losses to Ukrainian. And then you add that to yesterday, which was just, I don't know, 8-to-1s, 6-to-1, I don't know, whatever that is, it's huge. This is not a good look for the Russians. Russia appears to be losing an expletive ton of armor and in its push on Avdiivka, says Benjamin Patet. And actually, he's referring, this map here is a geolocated map with I forget the actual Twitter handle, but it's something like geolocated.com or geolocator or something. It's one that I often dip into, and they have a map of the geolocation of these, and these will often indicate not just a single vehicle, right? There's just a huge amount of vehicle losses in the Avdiivka area. Well, okay, so this is a video of another attempt to move a large armored Russian convoy from Krasnohorivka to cover the northern flank of the Avdiivka front. And it's appeared online. The column consists of approximately 20 vehicles. I think it's actually more than that. So this is a not very good version of this is where it's stuck. So you can see in this bit here, there's 20, right? So that's 20 in about that area there. But there are vehicles all down here, and there are vehicles that go all the way back there. This was a massive column. This is when it got stuck. So I think I've got a slightly better version of the video here, which is from slightly earlier. Of course, I need to turn off the sound naturally. Right, so here, let's go from the beginning. And you can see the vehicles here going round there, and then coming, and then up there, and then round. You can see them moving there. There's a vehicle going the other direction there, and that's going, I presume, up back there too. So that, I would say, is more than 20. And you start seeing artillery hits here as well, and it kind of stops. Now, I have a feeling this was a missed opportunity for the Ukrainians, and probably indicates that they lack some artillery or artillery ammunition in the area, and certainly HIMARS. This would have been absolutely a fantastic opportunity for HIMARS to just do one HIMARS there, one HIMARS there, one HIMARS there, one HIMARS there, and all those tungsten pellets would just shred all these vehicles, and you could have taken out all those vehicles in one. But that gives you an indication of the size of the attack, and that was just in one of the places. So that was up here, coming to the south along. Let's make sure I have my layer on. Sorry, always deselects it. I forget. I think it might have been around this road here, coming up and around, or somewhere in that area, maybe somewhere else. I don't know. Nonetheless, it was in that general area. And then you had that splitting into two, or that had already been split into two, and then you had two prongs here, and then another one possibly in the Spartak area. Really huge attacks. And then, lots of it, actually, this is Novomakilovka further down to the south, but, it just goes to show that that wasn't the only area where the Russians were losing equipment. 2 personnel carriers, NTLBs there. This was Andrew Perpetua saying last night, Russia lost even more vehicles. Their losses are endless. My fingers tire of counting them, as he geolocates another loss here, as I think it goes over a mine, I think, there. So, and someone else saying there are 2 new Russian tank losses in this film, it seems. One arriving, just people just finding equipment getting destroyed all over the shop. Well, Tatarigami's done an analysis, and I'll do that just for this video, because I think this attack was so important, it's worth just dwelling on it to a degree. So He says, Tatrugami says, in recent days, Avdiivka, an operationally vital settlement near Donetsk, emerged as a frontline hotspot. Our team has prepared this brief follow-up report to offer an overview of recent developments that took place between October the 10th and the 11th. On October the 10th, Russian forces launched a ground offensive from Krasnohorivka and Vodyane, aiming to encircle Avdiivka. The assault featured unusual use of armoured vehicles, departing from their prior reluctance in large-scale armoured attacks. Not just unusual in the number, I mean, it was a huge number of vehicles, but also, having motorbikes thrown in there as well. The significant number of tanks and APCs highlights the Russian forces' intention for swift and overwhelming offensives on the flank and rear. So there were a lot of troops who were dropped off, and that would have provided great opportunity for cluster munitions to be used, but I think there might have been, again, some missed opportunities there. They did what they could with what they had, and their armoured units to suppress, overrun, and at times capture Ukrainian positions. Yet Russian forces advance decelerated. Despite reaching the northeast of Stepova, a rear area of Avdiivka, they faced minefields, anti-tank resistance and artillery fire, resulting in significant losses and hindering their ability to exploit their initial success. So, what was interesting in Andrew Perpetua's live stream, he talked about this up near Stepova, which is there. And the initial claims, remember, from Rebars, they had marched past Stepova into Berdichi and were attacking down to the south towards Orlivka, and that seems to be a complete fantasy. There's video footage of Russian tanks running into mines, which is nothing unusual, but the mines were really out in the open. They were stuck out. It looks like they'd either just recently been hastily put down, or I've talked about this previously, but really one of the main reasons that you lay mines isn't so much to blow up equipment. It's actually to slow the enemy down. It bogs them down. You can hit them with artillery, but also it gives you time to react and do what you need to do. The bonus is if you get to destroy them. So sometimes they're laid quite obviously, as was the case here, but they still took out a couple of tanks who just ran over these really obviously laid mines. Just so much footage and stuff coming out from there. Anyway, they face minefields, anti-tank resistance, artillery fire, resulting in significant losses and hindering their ability to exploit their initial success. Our most conservative estimates suggest that Russian side suffered a minimum of 36 vehicle losses. I mean, Andrew Perpetua's counted pretty much exactly that many on the first day. He's not looked at stuff coming out the second day, but from the video from pretty much the first day, I think there was like 30 something losses and now more. So absolute bare minimum 36 losses, which include abandoned, damaged or destroyed vehicles. These losses predominantly consist of APCs, tanks of various configurations and transportation vehicles. It's premature to say whether the Russian forces will achieve substantial advances in the coming days, given the challenging situation for both sides. However, it's already clear that the assault has proven to be likely highly costly for the attackers. So we would conclude that our prior concerns about the Russian reserves were justified, as they were able to allocate resources for this operation, despite their concurrent operations in Kupiansk and in the south. However, their offensive capabilities appear to be still limited. This is to say that they said the other day, stop claiming that they've got absolutely no reserves. They do have reserves. The question is, what's the force quality of the reserves? Are they cobbled together? Are they from kind of combat ineffective half units from here, from there, and so on and so forth? So there are still questions about the reserves. I think they are absolutely at the end of their reserves. I think their reserves limit, personally. As far as doing major offensives, you do something like this, and you're really in trouble, which, this is a success for the Ukrainians big time, and you would imagine they'll be bringing in HIMARS and all sorts of bits of equipment to support what has happened already. The Russians appear to have got somewhat bogged down. It isn't this blitzkrieg attack and success, and so therefore the Ukrainians should be able to continue to hammer the Russians in position now. So much so that the Ukrainians, it started off, oh my god, it's all terrible yesterday, and then you saw the mood change. And here we have someone from the Avdiivka area saying, since the very morning, Vodyane is heavily shelled. That's to the south of Avdiivka. They are assaulting the positions as reported. Russians have far less vehicles by now. The night was not the best, but the command gave everyone eyes night vision, so the boys were observing everything without any special changes along the front line. The mood of the boys is they're not going to break through here. smiley emoji. Disposable expletives, that's what they call the troops who are thrown forward into the assault, disposable, are first sent, then more experienced ones are thrown. They don't end. The main thing is to destroy the vehicles. What the boys are doing now, video soon, we are waiting for information from other areas of the front, and that's itself to indicate that there is a video to come out, but they haven't released it yet. So there will be lots more evidence to bring to bear. Now, Andrew Perpetua on his live stream, go and watch it. Please go and watch all of it and support him. He does such fabulous work. He says this.
I honestly think Russia's running out of options. I don't think there's much they can adjust anymore. I mean, what is they tried terror bombing. They've tried huge offensives. They've tried these defensive counterattacks and stuff. They're running out of equipment. They are running out of men, whether people want to admit it or not. They are running out of men. I don't think they have that many options. Especially once Ukraine starts getting longer range weapons, which I think Ukraine will get eventually, whether NATO wants it or not. I think Ukraine is going to develop their own weapons at some point, whether it takes 6 months or 18 months or however long it takes to do it. They're going to eventually have long-range missiles. And I'm not sure what Russia can do to stop that sort of thing, and what damage that can do to the Russian war machine when you are now suddenly looking at having missiles land on your air bases and stuff, or manufacturing facilities. And I just don't really think Russia has as many options and has as much time as people make it out to be.
I thought that's spot on, and I get that sense as well. They are not trying anything new. They're not doing anything different. They're not bringing new capabilities, whereas the Ukrainians are developing their own capabilities all the time. Yes, you can say Shahed is a new capability they've got from Iran, but they've had that now for the best part of the year. Ukraine are developing new munitions, and if they can develop missiles that can go into Russia and hit some of these production facilities, then that's really important. The expert that Andrew had on last night, CJ, then went on to say, another guy, it came on to say that you've got this interesting situation where, and I've said this for months and months, I talk about how every week we see Russia degrade. As we're seeing here from these statistics, Russia's forces are degrading, Ukraine's forces are upgrading, and although their economy is here and they're in trouble, they're in a better military position in many respects than they were a year and a half ago. And that's not what you would expect. That's not what Russia would expect. A year and a half after this war, after this special military operation began, Russia would not have predicted that Ukraine would be in a better military situation with better equipment and arguably more of it than when they started this war, and better trained. Arguably, at least some of their troops. So this is an odd situation, and if Ukraine can hit Russia in their manufacturing facilities with long-range indigenously created weaponry, then that's a huge problem for the Russians. And then you've got and this guy CJ goes on to say they've got ATACMS coming online, they've got F-16s coming online. The options for Russia, as Andrew says, are not looking good. And I think I'd agree there. Okay, on distance strikes now, there were 33 Shahed sent last night, 28 of them shot down. Again, trying the same thing over and over. They do have success with these. Ukraine desperately needs air defense, and we'll go on to speak in the next video about how that is being addressed, but it's still their number one priority. Tim White says the Odessa region, the regional head there confirmed that there were some hits on the port of Izmail. So Izmail is that port on the Danube, just very much to the south there. As the Danube comes in and goes into Romania, it's right on the Romanian border. The border is on the Danube, so Izmail getting hit It's obviously grappled the Romanians previously, but it's still getting targeted. Something's burning in Belgorod. In Russia, air defense was active too. There were various claims coming out. There's a claim today coming out that something fell after being hit by air defense systems and fell on a house, and the house was burning. I don't know if that really represents a fire of that size, though. So I think, be interesting if something more significant has been hit in Belgorod. This is something we have not seen a lot from the Ukrainians. So this is Ukrainians hitting a supply route, a bridge. Ukrainian forces destroyed a bridge between Yazynovata and Horlivka. So one of the main supply routes for Russian forces in the offensive towards Avdiivka. And then we see the various bits of footage on this. That bridge has been taken out. Apparently, J-Dams could well have been responsible, as you see there. That is on the way down from Horlivka to Avdiivka here. And yeah, that is a significant hit. So that will screw up the Russian logistics. You do kind of wonder why it's taken them so long to do that. If it's an important target, but nevertheless, good news, I guess, for the Ukrainians there. We're now going to go and look at a few other bits and pieces here. Ukraine will continue offensive operations in the winter, said the chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff. Conversation with Zelensky and the Minister of Defense for Ukraine. So this is the understanding that I said they will culminate when they run out of ammunition and equipment, but mainly ammunition, assuming that they've got a steady flow of personnel, the Ukrainians. And I don't think they'll stop as a result of winter coming on, and that is the indication that we're hearing, particularly in the south, where winter will be less effective or have less of an effect. If they are going to if the Allied forces supporting them have ramped up their ammunition provision sufficiently, then you can see it might be a much slower, much smaller version of the main counteroffensive that we've already seen, but they were still pushed. So I was talking about culminating, but then I was like, or basically just slowing down, stopping to the point where they're still going to be doing their offensive ordnance barrages in terms of HIMARS, Excalibur, Storm Shadows. As long as they've got the ammunition, they will continue doing that, of course. And that's the definition of culmination anyway. The two Ukrainian brothers who apparently coordinated a deadly attack on Hrozha, where we know that at least 53 have died at that, 55 actually now, with some still missing. To think that there are a couple of local Ukrainians collaborators who helped to carry that attack out is obviously really distasteful. So that was doing news rounds yesterday. British intelligence has said over 100,000 Russian troops suffer from mental health crisis. The number is likely now higher, though. Doctors in Russia send such military personnel to fight to the front, so its combat capability is low. So not only are they not getting adequately rehabilitated, but they're actually being sent back into the front lines, which might then have a knock-on effect to the combat effectiveness of the Russian troops. Right, Budanov has said a few things in charge of the Ukrainian intelligence. Russia has economic strength to fight until 2025. Ukrainian military intelligence chief said that Russia likely has the economic and technical capacity to continue its war against Ukraine until 2025 or 2026. In an interview with Ukrainska Pravda, he suspected the Russian human resources may last even longer. In fact, in a fairly kind of sad state of affairs, in a fairly damning indictment of the global situation, Budanov has also said, global war is looming. This is my subjective assessment. Based on the totality of geography, we see several conflicts that, at first glance, seem to be regional, except for Ukraine, but they are all connected by the same countries that are involved in these processes. So are we all going to hell in a handcart? Possibly. This is a kind of warning against certain social media users, and actually some of my sources, I do take issue with them. There's one called Max23 that often, in fact the next one is Max33, but quite often does this, which make claims and doesn't put the source, or at least says the source rather than putting the URL link, which irritates me. But actually, if you're going to do good OSINT work, and I don't see myself, I'm not OSINT, I'm synthesizing what other people have done and found out and whatever. I'm just a communicator. But Rob Lee here says, agree with this thread. There is a variance in the credibility of Telegram channels. Without mentioning the original source, you make it difficult to determine the credibility of the footage. Some accounts also misrepresent the context provided by the original source. If you note, sometimes I go and find the original source and say, actually, this is a misrepresentation of what was said. And sometimes the headline from that source, if it's a news source, is itself misrepresentative. So you get someone reporting the headline saying, well, this has happened. Well, actually, the news, whoever does the headline, I know this because sometimes when I write articles, my editor says, chooses a slightly different wording for the headline. But I send that, I'm fine with that, right? It's not done without me. I will say, right, yeah, that's cool. I like what you've done with that. But there will be a lot of editors in different places, news places, where they will create the headline, and the writer, the journalist, the reporter isn't responsible for the headline, which means there's a disparity between these two. You catch onto the headline, and actually it's misrepresenting the actual news, and you think the news article says something, but it actually says something else. So Elliot Higgins from Bellingcat, the open source intelligence organization, says, while we're all discussing the spread of disinformation and misinformation on Twitter, I'd like to call out certain behavior of some self-described OSINTers, open source intelligence sources, who are and what they're doing that doesn't help the situation, posting videos, images, and claims without sharing the original sources. The point of open source investigation is it's open source, not special secret information. And for me, the goal has always been to have a clear understanding of situations using open source material, sharing the original links and sources so other people can look for themselves. What I'm seeing more and more with some OSINT accounts just taking content from Telegram and reposting it, which isn't so awful in itself, but failing to link the original source is the antithesis of what open source investigation is about. The only reason you shouldn't share a link is if it would put the source at risk, or if it's from a place that can't otherwise be linked to. If it's just from public Telegram channels you're following, then you've no real excuse not to post a link to it. Posting a link to the source allows other researchers to explore the source. I totally agree, and this is what I was saying earlier. That's something I like to do if I have time to verify the information. I'm like, I'm not too sure about that. I like to know where it's come from and make new discoveries. If the goal is to help the public understanding of the unfolding event, then that's what we should be aiming for, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's a good point, and bear that in mind when you are looking at open source claims or claims on social media or wherever. Always question, is that verifiable? Is that what they actually said? Where's the source? Can I verify that? And then the last thing to show you is this. It appears that our good friend, hero of Chechnya, self-appointed, who would self-appoint themselves anything like that? My goodness. Oh yeah, legend of the universe. Thank you very much. Anyway, Ramzan Kadyrov here, he appears to still be alive, but I wouldn't say is very well, judging by, I showed you much earlier in this war, he did a PR video of himself and I think a gun in his hands running over some gravelly area near a river in this amazing bit of action footage, and he was like super fit and macho man. And then here you've got, I presume this is in answer to Hamas, but here he is having a little jog. Sorry, just for copyright reasons, but that's him. So my guess he's not very well. He's not been very well. I don't know if you're not very well. If I wasn't very well, I'm like, oh man, I am not very well. I've got primary progressive multiple sclerosis. The last thing I'm going to say to my PR cameraman guy that's helping me be really cool is like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, mate. Can you catch me running into the distance, please? Because if there's something I can do really well at the moment, it's run. I say as I stumble off in a not drunken, but it looks like I'm drunk whenever I walk or stumble. Just like Yeah, that would be a good idea. No, it's not a good idea. Anyway, I guess he's alive. Because there were these rumors he had been poisoned. I think he has been poisoned, probably. There are the claims about sort of liver function. Is it liver, I think? Or anyway, some organ failure he's being challenged with. That's the end of the news piece today, the first one. Please check out number 2 that will be out shortly. Thank you very much for your support. Take care. Speak soon.